kind of drunk that you take work folks to a strip club, and so drunk then that you try to get up on stage and dance with the strippers. The kind of drunk that stopped the Uber because you're going to vomit drunk. Look, I understand there are people who have alcohol problems, but we cannot trust the safety of our country to someone who has demonstrated repeatedly using very bad judgment with alcohol and doing it in ways that truly have incapacitated him.
Senator Elizabeth Warren at her most memorable last night here on this show, speaking on the subject of Pete Hegseth. Mr. Hegseth is the co-host of a weekend morning show on Fox News, and now the nominee to be defense secretary in the Trump administration. Despite concerns like the ones expressed by Senator Warren and other Democrats on the Armed Services Committee, Pete Hegseth's nomination advanced today in the Senate largely along party lines. There were two Republican senators, Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, who joined all Democrats in voting no against him today. That means if one more Republican joins the two of them in the final vote tomorrow, the vote on him will be tied, but he'd still get through because J.D. Vance, as vice president, would break the tie in Pete Hegseth's favor. If two more Republican senators said no, though, Mr. Hegseth's nomination would fail. Even as the Hegseth nomination has continued to move forward, so has the reporting that has Democrats and a few Republicans questioning whether he is an okay pick to oversee the entire U.S. military. Mr. Hegseth has been dogged by a long list of allegations, each of which he has denied. He denies allegations of excessive drinking, including by work colleagues who said he was frequently drunk, sometimes very drunk, at work functions, and that he had alcohol on his breath, even at his morning show job. He denies alleged mismanagement of two nonprofits for veterans. He denies an allegation of sexual assault in a 2017 case where prosecutors didn't press charges, but where Mr. Hegseth did reach an agreement with the woman who had gone to police. The agreement included a payment to her that she should be quiet about it. Today we learned how much he paid. Answering a written question from Senator Warren, Pete Hegseth said that he paid this woman $50,000 for her silence. But new questions this week about Hegseth began with a story first reported by NBC News. Here's the headline, quote, "Senators receive affidavit containing new allegations against Pete Hegseth, who denies the claims." The sworn affidavit comes from his former sister-in-law, a woman who was married to his brother. She submitted the affidavit at the request of the top Democrat on the Senate Armed Services Committee. NBC News reporting, quote, "Danielle Hegseth described in the affidavit allegations of volatile and threatening conduct by Hegseth that made his second wife, Samantha, fear for her safety." In the affidavit, the former sister-in-law details instances in which she says she was, quote, "a witness to and even a victim of emotional abuse by Pete Hegseth." She says she personally witnessed him abusing alcohol numerous times. That reporting is what Warren was responding to so memorably last night. An attorney for Hegseth denied the story, telling NBC News that Hegseth's ex-wife, quote, "has never alleged that there was any abuse. She signed court documents acknowledging there was no abuse. She recently reaffirmed the same during her FBI interview." The ex-wife herself told NBC, "There was no physical abuse in my marriage. And, quote, I have not and will not comment on my marriage to Pete Hegseth." For the record, NBC reports that she gave the FBI a prepared statement that said Hegseth has had and continues to have a problem with alcohol abuse. But the question of whether Hegseth's two ex-wives were able to publicly discuss details of their marriages to Pete Hegseth, that came up during his Senate hearing.
In finalizing divorces from your first and second wives, were there non-disclosure agreements in connection with those divorces?
Senator, not that I'm aware of.
If there were, would you agree to release those first and second wives from any confidentiality agreement?
Senator, it's not something I'm aware of.
But if there were, you would agree to release them from a confidentiality agreement?
Senator, that's not my responsibility.
Turns out that while this is not a full non-disclosure agreement, There is something in the divorce papers from Pete Hegseth's second marriage that is worth knowing about, given how his confirmation hearings have gone. Check this out. This is the divorce decree from 2018 in the Minnesota court system. MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin was able to obtain this today. You can see the decree contains a, quote, parenting plan setting out how the Hegseths would handle taking care of the kids after the divorce. Part of that plan includes, quote, avoiding derogatory comments. Quote, both parties agree to not say anything negative about the other parent to or in front of the children, or allow third parties within their control to do so. In addition, both parties will refrain from engaging themselves in any public discourse, including through either traditional media or social media, disparaging the other party, and will take reasonable steps to encourage friends and family to refrain from doing so. And they both signed this document, Pete Hegseth and his second ex-wife, Samantha. Again, to be clear, this clause is not a full non-disclosure agreement. A lawyer for Mr. Hegseth, Tim Parlatore, tells MSNBC, quote, it is a limited non-disparagement agreement. These are two legally distinct concepts. There's nothing inappropriate or inaccurate about Mr. Hegseth's answers to the committee. It takes some significant imagination and intellectual dishonesty for anyone to consider this to bear on the credibility of his testimony. Both parties will refrain from engaging in any public discourse disparaging the other party. Senator Kaine provided a statement to MSNBC as well, saying, quote, that clause in a divorce settlement could expose someone to severe consequences for sharing unflattering information about an ex-partner, even if that information is true. The existence of this agreement, which has not been previously reported, seems important on the eve of Pete Hegseth's confirmation vote tomorrow in the United States Senate, one that seems to hinge on just one or two votes. MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin joins us next. Stay with us.